Welcome. We're at the Sam J. Ervin Jr. Library and Museum in Morganton, North Carolina. We're here to discuss the democratic process and the elections for 2008. Senator Sam was best known as the chairman of the Watergate Commission and was also known as a great defender of the Constitution. Senator Sam used to say that a leader is a person who improves the lives of other people or the systems that they live under. Isn't that what the democratic process is all about? Finding the best leader for this country through your vote. The intention of Connect the Dots is to highlight past democratic conventions and to answer questions about the 2008 elections. On the surface, the Democrats have an easy system to follow. An individual declares their candidacy for president, the candidate's campaign, the voters vote. Delegates from each state are apportioned according to the outcome from their district. The primaries end. The candidate with the official majority of delegates, as determined in advance by the DNC, becomes the presumptive nominee. In theory, delegates place their vote for the candidate that wins the majority in their district. The official Democratic presidential nominee is named for the general election in the fall. The 2008 Democratic primaries have been very interesting, exciting, and confusing.
Well, brouhaha erupting over comments made by House Speaker Nancy Pelosi after she suggested that superdelegates should back the candidate with the most pledged delegates. She's been saying this all along, but she got very fiery about it again yesterday.
I also want to go on the record because this goes to what my mama taught me. My mama always taught me to play by the rules and to respect those rules.
In the meantime, we're getting word from House Speaker Nancy Pelosi this morning that they will have a nominee. It will be soon. This thing will not be taken to the convention in August. She says if it's not settled by next week, she's going to step in and settle it herself.
To understand where we are, let's take a look at previous elections.
Let me say first that I accept the nomination of the Democratic Party.
John F. Kennedy went to the Democratic Convention 500 delegates short of the nomination. He emerged as the nominee and edged out Nixon for the presidency in 1960. President Lyndon Johnson stunned the country by withdrawing from the race for re-election in March of 1968. Vice President Hubert Humphrey announced his candidacy in April of 1968. He went to the convention with 200 more delegates than he needed. There was as much controversy inside the 1968 convention as there was outside on the streets of Chicago. In the months that led up to the convention, Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert Kennedy were murdered, and there was no end in sight to the Vietnam War. Tensions ran high. Thousands of anti-war protesters marched toward the convention and clashed with police. Riots devastated the city. Hundreds were arrested and many were injured. At the convention, Chicago Mayor Richard Daley wanted Ted Kennedy to run for president. Daley caucused the delegation of 118 the weekend before the convention and decided to remain uncommitted. Humphrey faced a major credentials fight. Delegations from 15 states attempted to unseat Humphrey's delegates and replace them with anti-war delegates. Behind the scenes, there was a push to get Ted Kennedy to run for president. Some delegations sang, "We shall overcome," and marched through the convention in protest. In the end, Hubert Humphrey got the nomination and ran against Nixon in the general election. Nixon won the presidency. George McGovern's campaign was fueled by young people and the anti-Vietnam vote. His opponents labeled him a liberal. He went on to the convention and secured the nomination nonetheless.
You're not only invited to that party on June 6th, but you're invited to the one in Miami Beach in July. Perhaps the biggest celebration of all will be the one in November when we mark the retirement.
During the election, he lost 49 of the 50 states.
It's becoming obvious to me that the major obstacle that we have to overcome is not another candidate, but the inclination on the part of some political figures who are very high in Democratic Party circles and who are very good people.
Carter won the presidency, but when he ran for re-election in 1980, he was challenged by Ted Kennedy. Kennedy went to the convention 756 delegates less than Carter. 122 delegates were uncommitted. Kennedy tried to get an open rule motion passed. The motion was that regardless of which candidate the delegates were pledged to, the open rule would allow pledged delegates to vote for any candidate. The rule didn't pass, and Kennedy quickly conceded. Carter lost the general election to Ronald Reagan. Following the losses of George McGovern and Carter, and the convention fights between Kennedy and Carter, the Democratic Party decided that enough was enough. Democratic voters had selected candidates that were unelectable. As a result, in 1982, superdelegates were born. The purpose of superdelegates is to increase the sense of order and avert a crisis at the convention, and to nominate a candidate who can win. The 1984 convention was dramatic and historical. Presidential candidate Jesse Jackson made a moving speech. He also reminded us that this is a convention, not a coronation. Walter Mondale won the Democratic nomination that year and named Geraldine Ferraro as his running mate. 1984 was the first year that superdelegates were at the convention. So who are the superdelegates?